Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sobriety and Everything Else. I am your host, Eric Andrew, and I'm coming to you taped from my dining room studios here in lovely US of A. And today we're going to talk about why don't you just quit? How many of you have heard that before? Maybe you're somebody who's kind of on the fence about whether you want to quit or not, and you have people around you that are just telling you, hey, why don't you just quit? Why don't you just do something else? Don't drink. Just don't drink. That's hard to do, right? That's really hard to do. And there's a lot of reasons that's hard to do. And I want to talk a little bit about that today. So I have a couple of notes. I am unfortunately going to have to use my glasses so I can make sure that I get everything out there that I want to get out there for you. So bear with me. Right. All right. So trying to just quit is a difficult thing to do. Um, there's a lot there. First and foremost, addiction is a big issue in most people's lives, not just addiction to alcohol, but addiction to many things. We can have addiction to the gym. We can have addiction to chocolate. We can have addiction to pornography. We can have addiction to smoking. We can have addiction to blue M&Ms. I mean, you name it, we can have an addiction to it. And I had heard one place, and this is kind of how you can judge where you're at in your own life with certain things, is if an addiction becomes something that takes away from your life, then that's a problem. So a great example of that would be if you're getting ready to go on a trip and you get in a car and you're driving and you're not driving, you're actually the passenger, and suddenly you realize, oh, I forgot to pick up fill in the blank, chocolate, cigarettes, booze, whatever it might be, chips, and the person driving says, "Oh, well, that's not a problem. We'll maybe we can stop when we get there." And you say, "No, no, no. We need to stop now. I need to pick this up now." And you basically force the person to stop, to pull off the road, the highway, into a town or something so you can pick up whatever it is that you're looking for, so you can be at ease that you actually have that. That in itself is an addiction. All right, because it is taken away from your life and what you're doing. So we can have addictions to a lot of different things. So when people say just quit, maybe they should look at some of the addictions that they have. Okay, with that being said, let's just use the argument that you really do need to take a look at your drinking, that your drinking is, you've noticed, has started to interfere with your life in many ways. Maybe taking time off from work, maybe in family outings, maybe in your relationships, maybe you find yourself isolating so you can drink alone and not be bothered. So there's a lot of different reasons that we might be looking at that this could be a problem. And by the way, it doesn't have to end in some sort of major thing with the law or with a divorce or a loss of job or anything. It could just be simply that you're noticing that, hey, this is really starting to interfere with my life. I know many people in the recovery world that are exactly that. They were that person. They did exactly that. So that could be you, and that's okay. That's just meaning that you're very aware of what's around you and you're very aware of what is interfering maybe with your life and keeping you from living your best life. So let's just say you're now at this place where you're saying, hey, I think I might want to quit. So there's a few things that we can be looking at. Let's see. So there's some reasons. First off, let's talk a little bit about some of the reasons that we might be addicted. One of the first big reasons, and this was something I had to recognize in my own life, was trauma. Now, a lot of us go, oh, trauma. Well, and some people will define it like a big T and a little t. So big trauma, right? So sexual abuse, physical abuse, those kind of things. And that's kind of what we hear about more as trauma. So a lot of people kind of look at that and go, well, that's trauma. The idea of emotional duress or anything like that, that's not really trauma. Well, you know what? I'm here to tell you that it actually is. It actually is trauma. And the argument really is that for the most part, most of us have some emotional trauma in our lives. Now, you might be saying, wait a minute, Eric. My parents were great. They didn't do anything wrong. I lived a pretty decent childhood. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, your parents are human, just like you are human. Your parents do the best that they can with what they have. So this isn't about blaming them. So just please understand that this is not about blaming them. This is about getting to the root of what your problem might be. So if you're looking at the idea that trauma could be part of it, emotional trauma could be that. And it could be in the form of just not feeling safe. It could be in the form of being worried about abandonment, and it may be some isolated incident happened at one point in time where your mom or your dad had an argument with your parent, your other parent, and stormed out of the house and got in a car and left. And maybe they only left for an hour or so and came back. But to somebody young, so 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old, that is trauma, because the first thought in your head is, are they ever going to come back? Are they going to be there for me? And believe it or not, that one isolated moment could actually show up later on down the road for you as abandonment issues, where you might find yourself feeling that. And maybe it shows up in relationships. So maybe you start to have problems when you don't hear from your significant other quick enough. Or maybe you're just starting to date, and this person's very casual and reaches out every now and again, and you're feeling anxious. You're feeling like, well, I need to hear from them. What's going on? I want to be around them. Or maybe you're pressing the relationship, wanting it to kind of come to some sort of fruition in terms of what is it? Is this a serious relationship where we're looking to become a couple, or is this a friendship? What is it? All of these things could stem from that one moment of abandonment that you might have experienced when you were, again, 4 or 5, 6 years old. That happened once. It may not have ever happened again. So these things can affect us. Now, am I suggesting that you should be digging through your childhood for those moments? No. Only do it if you're starting to find there's things in your life that are a struggle. If you're starting to find that maybe your drinking was because you felt like you didn't fit in, or you felt like you were alone, or you felt like people didn't understand you, start to look at those things and say, well, where did that come from? Where did I get this idea that people didn't understand me? Where did I get this idea that people abandoned me? Where did that come from? And that's where the work comes in, to try to figure out if that's part of the issue. All right. So that's one thing that could be part of what's going on for you in this idea of addiction, and how you might go after that and work on that. And that does require a lot of work. It could be counseling. It could be getting involved with a group that deals with those kinds of things, where you can work with other people and hear other people's stories, which might help you. But that is definitely one issue. So along with that, sometimes we get into, especially in relationships, the idea of attachment, and sometimes these can be called attachment issues. So we can have an anxious attachment. So again, kind of what I was explaining before, where people want very quickly to create a relationship, and they already in their heads have this situation happening where these two people that have just met are a couple already, and it's already working in your brain that way, that you're pressing to make it happen, to create a relationship, and not waiting and allowing it to naturally take its course. Right. So that could be part of it. Also, there's an avoidant piece to that, avoidant attachment. So avoidant attachment would be somebody who, anything that starts to become serious, they don't want to be a part of that. That they push away from that. They want their independence, even though they still kind of want the idea of a relationship, but they want their independence as well. So anything that feels like it's smothering, or that they're having to give up, in their eyes, give up too much, then they start to pull away. They start to try to distance themselves a little bit. And that those people, the avoidant attached people and the anxiously attached people, together can be like oil and water. They just don't usually find a common ground. They have to do a lot of hard work for that. And then there's just the normal attachment, or the attachment, the relaxed attachment, where, and I'm sure, I think I'm getting that word wrong, that they call it, but in that way, you are secure in yourself, you're secure in other people, you realize where things are, you're okay with it taking its time and following its course, and you will, allow it to naturally become something if it's supposed to be, and you're okay if it doesn't. You don't get anxious about it or avoid certain things. You're just in a good situation where you were a healthy attachment. You have a healthy attachment to the idea of it. And a lot of these attachment issues can come from trauma-based issues that also then define why there might be an addiction issue. Most people that have these kinds of things going on in their lives are addicted, usually to something. It doesn't necessarily have to just be alcohol. It could be pornography. It could be both. It could be addiction to other things. Maybe they're into the gym and they go to the gym all the time and they just only have time for things like that, and not really focusing in on other kinds of ways that people get together and have relationships, friendships or otherwise. So there's many types of things that could play a role in that. And it's complicated, right? I mean, just in how I explained it, I'm sure it sounds complicated. Um, so those are other things that might happen. Also, just this idea of emotional intelligence, understanding how emotions work, and also understanding how we don't necessarily have to attach ourselves to the emotion. We can look at an emotion and realize that we don't have to make the choice to attach to that. It could be an emotion that we recognize that we're angry. We embrace that anger, but then we can let it go. We can move past it. We don't have to have it. Please understand, as I say all of this, I'm not trying to make this easy, because it's not easy. I'm not trying to make it sound easy. This takes work. You have to work at it. And just because you understand it doesn't necessarily mean that you can apply it to your life right away. And this is one thing in the world of recovery that I've learned, is that I can read the material and I can be taught in counseling or wherever I'm at about these things, but then when I try to apply them to my life in the heat of the moment, sometimes they don't work. And I have to slow down and I have to go back and I have to take it a step at a time. And I have to realize that maybe in a relationship I might be involved with right now, the step may be recognizing that I'm involved with somebody who's, anxiously attached, avoidantly attached, and that the possibility of that being successful really isn't there. And I make the choice to step away from it before anybody gets hurt. So I'm able to make that decision, but I may not have handled it very well, in the eyes of the other person. I may have just stopped, and really didn't talk a lot about it and just made the choice to walk away. Part of it is, because we're in the early stages of it, and some people tend to make those kind of choices in the early stages and don't really feel the need to have a long conversation about it. Not necessarily the best way to do it, but you look at what you did succeed in recognizing that this is a problem, and you then decided to solve it. So that's another, the idea that we have to realize in recovery is a step-by-step process. It's not something that gets fixed overnight and that all of a sudden we're good to go and everything that ever was bad in our life now suddenly is good. So in all of this, and saying all of this, and again, a lot of these things aren't things that we would deal with right away, but there are things that may come up. The bottom line in all this, even in the beginning stages of recovery, is there is hope. And the hope is this big word that I'm about to say to you, neuroplasticity. They have researched and found that this thing up in here, this thing called the brain, actually can change and adapt and get better and heal. All right, and we see it Simply, we see it in just the idea of a habit. So if you think of your addiction as a habit, so let's say that you go to the bar every Friday night, and that has become your thing. At the end of the day on Friday, that's where you head to. And, unfortunately, you don't necessarily leave until very late at night. And at that point, you're pretty done, right? Now that's a habit. You pay attention to that. You expect to do that. That is part of your life, right? So now all of a sudden you decide, hey, I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to go into recovery. Now all of a sudden you have that Friday night moment where you're so used to going to the bar and now you can't do that because you're in recovery. So many people in the early stages of recovery talk about feeling really worried because they have all this free time that they don't know what to do with. Because that free time had become time at the bar, time with drinking at home, whatever it might be. So where we have to start the work is creating new habits. So on a Friday night, instead of going to the bar and drinking, maybe we decide to take a walk. Maybe we decide to go to the gym. Maybe we take a yoga class. Maybe we decide to go see a movie. Maybe we go food shopping on Friday nights instead of Sundays and get it out of the way. We fill that time up with something else, and we start creating new neural pathways in our brain that start to recognize, oh, Friday nights we go shopping. Oh, Friday nights we go to the gym. Oh, Friday nights we go to yoga. And no more, oh, Friday nights we go to the bar. That gets kind of exercised out of the habit, and we start to move that direction. So that's one thing to do. All right. So just quitting isn't the answer. It doesn't happen that way. Where it happens is a step-by-step process. So if you are going into your day one of quitting alcohol, of stopping drinking, there are some things that you can do that can start to work on the neuroplasticity in your brain and what it is that you want to do. So the first step would be that we need to take this whole thing a moment at a time. All right. AA has they talk about a day at a time, but then some people say, and if you have to, do it a moment at a time, do it an hour at a time, a half an hour at a time, whatever it takes. You're trying to get through each moment in your day without drinking. So, first 48 hours to 72 hours can be really, really hard. And depending on if you are in the process of trying to detox, on top of that, you have to do the detox right. And the detox really should be dealt with by a medical professional. Some of us are so physically addicted to alcohol that it can cause problems in our body if we just stop cold turkey. So sometimes we need that medical advice and medical help to get us to that spot. But if we don't need that and we're just trying to get through the idea of getting rid of the want of a drink, we have to take it a day at a time. We have to take it a step at a time, a moment. So you may say, okay, well, that's great, Eric, but I'm sitting here alone by myself. How do I keep myself from going to the liquor store and buying? That's a great question. And this is where community comes in. So you need to create a community around you that has your back. Now, whether that's friends that you have that you can go to and talk to and say, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing. Can you be there for me if I need you? So if I feel like I want to go to the bar, or if I feel like I want to go buy liquor, can I call you and we can just talk about something and get my mind off of it? What I've found in that is 99.9% of at least my friends were totally into that, had no problem with that. In fact, they were very proud that I was trying to make this choice for my life to change my life. And you'll find that. Are there people that are going to be disappointed and go, oh, come on, man, you don't really have a problem. Let's go drink. Yes, you're going to have those people. A lot of times those people need you to be there because it helps them feel better about how they're drinking. And when you aren't drinking, it reminds them that maybe they have a problem because, they might be sitting there going, well, wait, I drank just as much as Eric did. I drank pretty much every night the way he did. And he's saying he's got a problem. So maybe I have one. So people that are in that place where they don't want to recognize their own issues may fight you on that and try to get you back in to the bar or back into drinking. But most of my friends, and even my friends who drank, were very supportive of me and very much in it with me. Now, if you don't have a lot of friends that you feel that you can trust and do that with, another choice would be to find a community. All right. Now, I belong to an online community called Recovery Elevator. Um, I love it. I've been with them now over 5.5 years, and they've been a big help. And in the community, we're able to talk to each other. We have Zoom meetings with each other. We have people literally all over the world that's in that community. So I've had the opportunity to learn a lot of things from a lot of different people, and it's been really great. I've really enjoyed it, and I really feel like they've got my back. And I'll give you a quick example. I went to a baseball game early on in my sobriety, and people were ordering beers, and my cousins were with me, and they were ordering beers, and I could smell it as it was passed in front of me and everything else, and I was getting really like antsy, and I really wanted to have it. So I just posted online to this group like, hey, I'm at a baseball game, I'm really feeling it, everybody's drinking, I really want to drink, I'm trying to hold back, but it's really pushing me. And immediately I got a ton of responses from people and messages from people. Hey, Eric, we got you, man. You can do this. You'll get through it. Just breathe. Get yourself a Coke or something. Have something in your hand to drink with. Drink with them, even though it's not booze. It'll make you feel like you're part of the group. And all this advice was great advice, and it was things that I wasn't thinking of in the moment because my brain was like totally working on this idea of drinking, and they were giving me all these different tools to use to get through the moment. And I got through the moment, and some of those tools I really used. The bottom line tool and all of that, honestly, is just knowing that those people were there and that they had my back and that they believed in me. That was important to me. And I found through just talking to people in recovery that has been important to them as well. So find yourself a community, or at least some good friends that are willing to have your back. All right. Um, Let me see. Is there anything else that I wanted to? Oh, and back to just the idea of changing the habits. When there's been an argument in the recovery community. It used to be we need 28 days to change somebody's habits, and this is why you saw early on with recovery people going to rehabs, and they were going in and they were being there for 28 days and getting out. What they were finding was that was not true, and that was not working. And what they realized was that it really needs almost 60 days, in some cases 90 days, to recreate a new habit and get that embedded into how your brain works. So there's a lot more talking about people going to rehab for 60 days and sometimes even 90 days, and then going to a halfway house and doing those kinds of things, not just coming out of rehab 28 days and going home back into the environment they were in. So this idea that we really have to work at changing how we think and changing how we look at everything is super important. Whether you're going to a rehab or whether you're going to do this on your own, you need to give yourself time to allow your brain to change and work through it. And you need yourself a community. And you need to take it a second at a time, a moment at a time, a day at a time. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. So if you happen to be looking for some help in all of this, I can be that person for you. I am a recovery coach. You can find me on my website, ericandrewcoaching.com, or you can email me directly at ericandrewcoaching12@gmail.com. That's ericandrewcoaching12@gmail.com. Either way, you can reach out to me, and I will be more than happy to talk with you privately via Zoom or whatever we decide works. And you can decide after you have that conversation whether it's something for you. But I'm definitely here for you. I will work out whatever details we need to work out financially to make it work for you. And I would love to hear from you. And if nothing else, I'd like to know how your journey's going. Maybe you're already in your journey and you're just listening to things. Please reach out. Let me know how you're doing. I would love to hear from you on that as well. All right, folks. Well, here it is. We're at the end of another episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, there's a lot more to it than just quitting. And you have every right to say there's more that you need to work on and do in order to get to that place of quitting. And just look for support. All right. So everybody have a great couple of weeks. I will see you in a couple of weeks with another great topic. Uh, and I will not tease you about it yet. I do have it, but I think it's going to be really cool to talk about, and really starting to let guards down now and wanting to encourage you to do the same. All right. So take care, everyone, and talk to you very soon.